the Fresno Focus Radio Hour. This is the No Focus Radio Hour. Comedy and insight from the greatest minds in Fresno. A Lightomine Media production. That's right, this is the No Focus Radio Hour, the number one non-church related podcast in the Central Valley. We want to remind you to subscribe to the No Focus Radio Hour. We are available wherever podcasts are sold. And remember to subscribe and leave a review. It helps others discover our show. And while you are reviewing, keep in mind that 5 stars is the correct number of stars. If you enjoy our show, please share it with your friends. And if you hate it, share it with your enemies. Check out our site, nofocusradio.com, for exclusive content and merch. You can find us on social media. Our handle is at nofocusradio. You can also find the rest of our shows at lightominemedia.com. Take it away, Eric.
I can't be with you, you know it's true. But I know just what I got to do. Gonna hit the ground running, running just as fast as I can. Gonna hit the ground running to my favorite podcast.
Oh, that's right. This is the No Focus Radio, the only radio hour made for those who live in the Central Valley, for those who miss the Central Valley, and for those who
listen to radio legend Ray Appleton in the Central Valley.
That's right. As always, we have our beautiful cast of characters. We have with us Eric the Doorman.
Hey, Fresno, what is happening?
We also have with us...
That's all I
That's
got.
the shortest intro you've ever done.
We also have with us Martys Pedasso.
Hey, it's always great to be here.
And, of course, Don Schlicks.
Hey, Fresno, it's good to be here with you. We've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. We're going to go over some polls, as we always do. We're going to talk about funny things. But we're excited today. We have probably the second most famous person to ever be on our podcast, only behind your friend, Austin Waltz.
This is true.
Yes,
this is true.
Who the hell is that?
Literally just Max's friend.
Right, okay.
But you've heard his voice. Maybe you've recognized that voice. That is the famous, well-known, local Fresno celebrity and radio legend, Mr. Ray Appleton. We're happy to have him. Welcome.
Ray.
I'm just pissed off you didn't let me sing a baritone part on it.
Oh, yeah, we should take it
We
back.
should
We got a
have.
professional. Ray does
you know
have
what?
a band.
We didn't go for our buddy Johnny over there.
That's right.
We
Thank
didn't
you.
introduce
About
him.
Johnny.
You forgot about me, of course you
Forgot
did.
about Johnny.
You guys know me as Johnny Knobs because I control the volume. Mr. Max here. But yeah, we are incredibly excited. We have been teasing this for a couple of weeks now, but we have with us Mr. Ray Appleton. Ray, thanks for coming on, man.
I'm glad I could finally make it. I know I stiffed you about 90 times.
No, we get it.
And stiffing somebody named Johnny Knobs
That's dangerous.
that's
a
a
hard
hard
slip.
illegal in
It helps when we
San Diego.
kidnap the guest, and
Yeah.
just force him to be on the radio. Here,
We'll
so.
untie you later if you cooperate.
Yeah, thank you for being on, sir. We appreciate it.
Oh,
yeah.
my pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Don't call me sir. I'm not dead yet.
Oh, okay. Just call you Ray.
Yeah, that'll work.
All right.
So we have obviously a great opportunity. We have this little fun podcast that we do. I kind of feel like we've invited Michael Jordan to our pickup basketball game, like in our front yard.
Huh.
So
Ah.
I hope we don't embarrass ourselves.
We will.
We will.
Yeah,
But,
we will. Rest assured.
welcome to the show. And Max, we've got some questions here. Do you want to just kick it off? I know Ray's been a long time voice of Fresno, and lots of things have been happening, Ray. These last few years have been some of the craziest that I can.
I've never seen anything like
Yeah.
it. No.
Yeah. So the first question, this is a big one, and I'm just going to throw it your way. What is the most, you've been in Fresno a long time, what is the most positive change you've seen during your time here in Fresno? And the other part, what is the most negative change you've seen in your time here in the Valley?
Oh, my God. Well, I'm a native Fresnan, so
Yeah.
I could talk about that. For the most positive thing, change. If I would have to fly to the cultural side.
Yeah.
and say because of the addition of like the Save Mart Center and all that, we're getting mainline shows now. Because I mean, first and foremost, I'm a music guy.
Yeah.
Even though I'm talking now, so that's big time to me. And the other was what's the most negative?
Yeah.
I really can't think of one. I mean, I'm a big supporter of Fresno. Fresno's got a horrible image that we self-perpetuate.
Yeah.
So I don't go there. I dig it. I dig it.
Actually,
Nice.
speaking of, I'm going to go off on a tangent here. Your band, the Appletones. I had the pleasure of seeing you open for James McCartney.
Oh
at
God!
the,
What a horrible man! What a
Yes.
horrible man!
How was that? How was that playing with James McCartney?
Well, oh Jesus! I mean, it was. I thought we were fine. I thought he sucked.
Yeah,
You
he
know.
was not good, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're Paul McCartney's son. Do something, please. I had him on my radio program that afternoon too, and it was just the most god awful, embarrassing interview I've ever done. I've been in radio in this town for 52 years, and somebody named McCartney had to be the worst thing that ever happened to me in radio.
Really?
No,
Gosh.
I'm not kidding, man. I mean, he was just a very unhappy guy, and I'll tell you a quick story. When his father came to town, I was introduced. I'm backstage, all that stuff, and he's I don't know how he found out. He goes, "Oh, Ray, I understand that you've met James," and I went, "Yeah, I did that." And he goes, "Oh, sorry for you, mate."
No way. No way.
Right hand to God, And I didn't pursue. In fact, his wife, who's a lovely lady, she's a New York attorney, Paul's wife, she looks at me and goes, "Shh, no." She's like doing the no sign.
Wow.
Don't say
So
that.
there's something going on there with dad and son.
Uh-oh.
I didn't want to pursue, So
Wow.
That is awesome.
Well, that sounded like an interesting interview. Another interview you did that's very interesting is you interviewed Charles Manson.
yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
That was weird. I was invited down to Corcoran to just, and I only recently can talk about this stuff because they didn't want me talking about it for years. Just to observe, what General Pop was like and what the prison was like. And I'm there for a very short time, and boom, I'm into PHU, which is Protective Housing Unit. And there's Charlie Manson, there's Saran, there's Juan Corona, there's a guy, the spookiest mother I ever met, by the name of Blue Norris, who was the founder of the White Aryan Brotherhood, the prison
jeez.
brotherhood.
Mm.
And the funny thing about Charlie is he used to send me notes telling me what was wrong with my radio program.
Wow.
He would critique
Really?
it from afar. Then they stopped. They wouldn't let him write me anymore. And he proceeded to tell me what was wrong with the whole country. And I'm like, "What's wrong with the country, Charlie?" And he goes, "We need to be a theocracy, a religious ruled country." And I went, "You of all friggin' people talking about a religious rule." But what was funny is his cell in this protective housing unit was right next to Saran, who killed Bobby Kennedy.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've got Saran, who was an absolute clean freak, and Pigpen Charlie Manson. And all they did was fight like two old ladies, I mean, that was the high
my
point of
gosh.
it. But it was a weird day. Very weird day.
Wow.
How long ago? When was that interview? How long ago was it?
Oh, we're going back maybe 15 years now. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
I've been at KMJ for almost 35 years. So this goes back.
Wow.
Goes back. Yeah.
So that's interesting. So he wanted a theocracy.
Yeah.
Did he find God at some point?
He claims he did.
Okay.
But in pursuing that, after getting to the point of finding God, he told me he was God.
Oh.
Oh.
So, in
Ah.
other words, he
Yeah.
wanted
there
to
you
rule
go.
the country. You
Got
get
it.
it? Now does
Yeah.
it sound more like Charlie?
Yes.
He found
Yeah.
himself.
That makes sense.
Found
There you
himself.
go.
Found himself.
Yeah.
Nice.
That is so. On a related note about interviews, I mean, all the people you've talked to, I'm trying. You must have I don't know if this is gonna be easy or hard question. What interview guest have you interviewed that surprised you the most for whatever reason? You maybe were expecting something, and then they weren't the way they were that you thought they were.
Well, I would put it this way. I wasn't so surprised as how this guest was on the air as how he was in person, because I've gotten to know him very well. It's a guy by the name of Donald Trump.
wow.
When
Okay.
he was in town trying to buy some West Side property for a
Golf course,
golf
right?
course called
Yeah.
Running Horse that he wanted to do, his lawyer, who's now out of jail, Michael Cohen, and I don't say this too loud, we got real tight, we got real close.
Oh.
And Cohen was supposed to be doing a lot of footwork for him with the Capitol at Sacramento on road easements and all this crap. And he didn't do any of it. I did. And Trump got wind of it, and he got really mad at Michael. And so, Ray, you're a good guy, blah, 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 blah. And so it was what I expected on the air, but in person, quiet, humble, an amazing listener. I've never seen anybody listen like Donald Trump does.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of people may think, oh, yeah, right. And can I use, what kind of language can I use on this? Is it all right?
Yeah.
I want to quote the then president. Years go by and he becomes president, and we're still in touch with each other. So I took a chance that his cell phone number was still the same.
Okay.
Inauguration day,
Mhm.
and it was the first morning of after the inauguration. I text him and I go, how are you feeling? And he texts me right back and he goes, he's the president now, right? He says, what in the do I do now? And I said, I think you'll figure it out, And then
That's funny.
he invited me to all of the State of the Unions. I had to miss one because I was ill. But that's when I saw him as the president, even doing more listening. When he was on the campaign trail, Devin Nunes and I gave him the whole, crash course on water in California and farming. And I'll be damned if he didn't memorize every second of it and run with it. So he's an impressive man. I just wish he would have kept his mouth shut. I mean, an arrogant SOB. So, but that sticks out for that reason. It's how he was privately. If I could come up with somebody on the air that, maybe was a little different. And see, you guys are probably not going to know this name. She was at one time an absolute revered actress, singer, dancer, a lady by the name of Eartha Kitt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
She played Catwoman on
Yeah.
Batman.
Yeah.
Eartha Kitt loved me a little too much.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, that was cool. Let me tell you what this was all about. Her fan club nationally was in Fresno, and the guy Peter, who was in charge of it, introduces us at a show she did at the Tower Theater, and we just hit it off. Now first off, she's like 20 years older than me, so I mean, and that's about right too, because I'm like 72 now, almost 72, and she wasn't sure of her age because there were no birth records, but she was
Sure.
80 something, whatever. And she said, I reminded her of her true love that she never really got together with, and that was Orson Welles.
Oh.
We had the same eyes. And she writes in her book, to the second most sexiest man I've ever met.
That's awesome.
So I'm expecting we finally get to an interview on air, and I'm expecting all of the caricature of how she is, with the trilling of her voice and going, hello, darling, and all that crap. And no, she went right into politics.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
she's a huge political animal.
Oh,
And she
okay.
took it all the way back to Vietnam and dissected it. And I'm like, oh, my God,
Wow.
But I became, this will sound bad, her escort for a number of years. She lived in Connecticut. I never went back there to see her, although I was invited. But anytime she was in California doing a show in San Francisco or LA or something like that, she'd put me on a plane and I'd show up and I'd be Mr. Date Man for the night. And,
Oh, that's awesome.
and she was just an awesome, awesome lady. I mean, obviously there was no romantic thing going on. We just became really good pals. So
Yeah.
that was an outgrowth of something on the radio that I
Yeah.
really treasure,
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Excited.
Well, I never even heard it, never even heard that side of her, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Eartha Kitt, you always see her as kind of the sex symbol for back then. Like I said, Catwoman.
Well, when Lyndon Johnson was in the White House, she had just come back from her self-exile in France. There was so much racism here. She went over to France where she became a giant star. And she's, from both worlds. Her father was white and her mother was black. And her nickname used to be Yellow Girl because of her skin color and all that. And one of the first things she did when she came back to the States is she was invited to the White House by Lyndon Johnson, President Johnson. And she went in there and just read him the fucking riot act over Vietnam. And that's where this whole conversation picked up. I said, tell me about the White House. And I think I said it was 1966. And she just took off like a rocket ship.
Wow.
And that was a different side of Eartha Kitt that nobody's ever heard before.
Now, also, did you mention that her fan club was based in Fresno?
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah, a guy by the name of Peter, man. He was he's involved with Fresno State now. He was the president of her fan club, and
Oh,
I used to
wow.
think he was full of bull. And she shows up in town. It's like, Ray, I want you to meet Eartha. Eartha, this is Ray. And I'm like, oh my God, you know. And
That's
Oh,
awesome.
Yeah.
yeah, good memory.
Also, I got a question. I read something about you being a greased watermelon champion, 1962.
Boy Scout.
Is
camp?
that yeah?
Where the
yeah,
hell
yeah.
did you get that?
The internet's an amazing place.
But I want to hear about that. How you became a greased watermelon champion. But also, there's another story about a doctor who treated you that day too.
The Nazi.
Right? Yeah, yeah. So can you tell us about
Wow, man. You're going back a long time. I'm in Boy Scout camp. I'm 12 years old. Up at Camp Chewanahee at Shaver
Right.
Lake.
Mhm.
And I'm fat. You know, I'm not exactly skinny now, but I'm the fat kid that everybody picked on. And so, just as a joke, the scoutmaster put me in what they call the greased watermelon race,
that? Okay.
which is you're out in this, you know, stanchioned off area in the lake. You know, it's like a swimming pool that isn't. And they throw a greased watermelon, and you're supposed to grab it and take it on shore first.
Oh boy. Okay.
Well, I
God.
just decided in my little old head that I was going to show everybody up, and I was going to have that watermelon if it killed me. And of course, they got the big explorer scouts in there with their muscles and all that, and these other guys. And first, I'm the youngest one, I'm the fattest one, and I just sort of laid back on shore while these guys are killing each other over this watermelon. And I knew that they'd tire out. And so finally, this one guy, and he had to be. He was an explorer. He's like 6'2", and I'm not exaggerating. And he's coming up out of the water, and I just threw a tackle. I bagged him, and I knocked him over, and I got the watermelon, and I ran to shore. And there's like 600 Boy Scouts looking at the fat kid, and they're just like, "Rah, yay!" I mean, I was the hero. You know?
Oh, that's awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, that's
So,
great. Amazing.
Now, going back to our camp, we had to walk across this old rickety bridge. So, everybody walked across it, no big deal. And I go walking across it, and there's a whole bunch of, all of my guys from our Troop 36 are behind me. A little too much weight on the bridge, and it collapses. And we go flying down. But unbeknownst to anybody, in the stream that the bridge was over, there were old railroad ties.
Ooh.
And one went through my leg.
Ooh.
If I wore shorts
railroad
tonight,
tie?
yeah.
Oh my
gosh. A shattered one.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So if I was wearing shorts, you'd see the scars. I mean, it's still very prolific to this day. And I didn't really feel anything. And I looked down. I'm just like, oh, shit. And the scoutmaster is, Appleton, don't talk that way. And I'm like, look. And he's like, oh, my God. And it was
Serious injury.
mother gruesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they had to get saws and cut it and then lift me and put me in the back of a
golly.
1949 Studebaker pickup truck that burned all the valves going down to Awanee, and I'm bleeding and I'm passing in and out. And so they take me to the only clinic that's there. And I said, doctor, I'll be right with you. Calm down, calm down. And I noticed one thing that was kind of peculiar. All of his nurses were these little tiny brown women from South America. South America. Do we get the connection to
Yeah.
World War II? And in comes this very big, giant doctor. I'm not going to say his name, but it was a very Teutonic German name.
Mhm.
And he had a very German accent, and he pulled back the cloth on my leg, and he goes, "Oh, just like the war." And I'm like, and even I'm thinking, is this Dr. Mangala or what's going on here, And he sewed me all up, and a great job. And I remember he gave me painkillers. It was phenobarbital, which is, I was hired at a chicken hawk at Boy Scout camp. And I didn't want to go home. I wanted to stay, so I stayed, and go home. My mother's like freaked out. Why didn't you come home? I said, I wasn't done with camp yet. I had 140 stitches in my leg, both sides.
Oh, my God.
And they weren't even sure they got everything out of it. And it ruined my kneecap and all this. It kept me out of the military,
Yeah.
Vietnam.
Wow.
And I even tried to join too, like a dummy. But so anyway, years later, well, first off, my mother takes me to my doctor, and he's looking at the stitching, and he's going, "That's military." And he looks at my mother's, and he says, "But not ours."
Oh, wow.
And my mother's going, "What are you saying?" And he goes, "Well, we'll talk privately." And I don't know what they said. But then a couple of years later, I'm like now 14, 15, and the guy's a Nazi war criminal.
Oh my
And it
God.
makes a little bit of news,
Wow.
And he's from one of the camps where he was doing whatever he was doing, and he escaped to South America. And sure enough, all the little nurses went with him, and but the doctor said he did a damn fine job of putting your leg back together.
Wow.
He says, for somebody who was in a hospital setting, he did just an amazing job. And I said, like, yeah, kind of like somebody who was patching people up in the field,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the story.
That is
That's
crazy.
incredible.
That's a trip.
Yeah.
So was he arrested or did he?
He died.
He died,
and they
it came
found out
Okay.
who he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he didn't
Wow.
have a record of torture or
Right,
anything
right.
like that. He was actually the physician in one of the Polish camps who took care of sick prisoners of war.
Oh.
It wasn't a concentration camp.
Okay.
It was a POW camp, Australians, Americans, English.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't have a record of any nasties,
Yeah.
except he was a member of the Nazi Party, and he was who he was, But
Wow.
but
That's-
my doctor, I'll never forget to this day. He's just like, that's amazing work, and he goes, because my doctor was a big shot in World War II, and he was a pediatrician at the time, and he's just said, but that's just not ours. He goes, I recognize that, but that's not ours.
Wow.
And my mother's just like shaking, it's my kid, the victim of a Nazi.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. They can tell from the stitches, though.
Yeah.
He knew in 10 seconds. I never forget that. I'm
Wow.
12 years old. I never forget that. He looked at it and he immediately knew who and what it was.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've had an incredible life, Ray. You've done amazing things. You've even learned how to fly a B-25.
Yeah.
So, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, first off, I always say that, I've never had a real job. I haven't. I've had a ball, and I don't take it for granted. I've had an incredible life. I mean, I've been to 129 countries. I've met everybody that's everybody, and 1992, I got a call from a friend, Joe Davis, who owns Eagle Field, which is the last standing Army Air Base out in Dos Palos. A lot of people don't know that it's out there, but it's there.
Yeah, I didn't know.
And he's in the process of restoring it, and it's pretty much together. And this is where a lot of the fighter pilots and bomber pilots were trained for World War II. And a lot of them wound up flying the Mitchell bomber, the B-25s. And he got a wild hair up his wazoo that for the 50th anniversary of the Doolittle raid, which, 30 seconds over Tokyo, that whole thing, where Jimmy Doolittle took 17 Mitchell bombers off the deck of a carrier. Never been done before. It was the first time, and the whole thing was to bomb Tokyo and demoralize Tokyo, and then crash land into China, and where the Chinese would pick them up and take care of them because we were allies. And he wanted to duplicate that. I go, oh, really?
Wow.
And he says, can you help me raise some money to do it? And he goes, I've got the planes. And I went, all right, yeah. So I raised, I don't know, a couple $100,000 for liability insurance and flew. And sure enough, we got an invitation from the Department of the Navy to put our planes together. And this is where I learned to kind of fly right seat. And the planes would be craned up to the deck of the Ranger, which has since been decommissioned, out on North Island. And we would take it out to sea. And before that, we practiced takeoffs on the same distance that Doolittle had on his carrier. Now, the carriers are much bigger now.
Yeah.
But to do it the right way, we wanted to take off with the amount of space that he had. So we had to do it early, And so we did that, and we organized all of the surviving raiders to be on the observation deck of the Ranger while we did this.
That's awesome.
And then we flew over Doolittle's home, and he was out at his car, at the rest home that he was at, and waving and saluting and all
cool.
that. But here's another story for you. I was in a plane called the Executive Suite, and we're doing all right. We're off. We're running. We're everybody. Yay! Look at these guys. The first time in 50 years to the day this has been done. And we're out over. We're coming up to Santa Barbara, and all of a sudden, right engine catches on fire.
Oh, jeez.
And we're in deep shit.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in really big trouble. And the Federal Aviation Commission, they immediately pushed us out, get out over the Pacific Ocean, fly low in case you have to ditch, So, I mean, we're flying literally 500-600 feet over the ocean, full out, trying to get to Santa Barbara so we can belly land, in the airport there. It was our only chance, unless we had to splash, and God only knows what would have happened.
Or you could bail out and the Chinese will save you, right?
Yeah, right. That's somebody with a Chinese menu, maybe. So
PF Chang.
the problem was we had to cut the fuel lines because they go from engine to engine in these old things. And the fire was just tripping along the fuel lines, making his way from right to left.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we still needed the left to get where we were going.
Yeah.
So we're using a minimal fuel, vapors to keep this thing all out, full flaps. And we made it to just by the hair of our you-know-what to Santa Barbara, and we ditched. And there's a great picture. I don't have a copy of it, though. I only saw it. We caught all the oleanders on fire.
No.
So here we are on the deck screaming along, and all the oleanders are on fire behind us, but it looks like we're laying out this trail of gas.
Right.
This is a real bitchin' accident, but it wasn't. And we made it, and I didn't know that the impact, I'd broken my back.
Oh, wow.
I learned that a couple of years later because I was having all this back pain. And the orthopedic surgeon guys were saying, "How did you break your back?" And I go, "I didn't break my back." And we're going through all the incidents, and I said, "Well, it could have been." And they go, "Oh, absolutely, that's what it was."
Wow.
The plane crash. Maybe that's when I
The
broke
funny
my
thing
back.
about the plane crash that while we were up in the air, this guy in a Learjet was bird dogging us, and he went out over the ocean with us, and he was reporting back to the tower, and he's being a real good guy. We didn't know who the hell he was, so he pulls up next to us. Where we're they have these port windows in the bomber. You got to throw yourself out of it because you can't go out the bottom. The bottom's on the ground, the bomb bay doors. And so we throw ourselves out, and we do the old somersault. That's the way you do it without killing yourself. We learned that before we went up. Never thought we'd have to use it. And he comes up next to us. He opens up the tail end of his jet. Get in. What do you mean get in? Get in. He goes, "I'll fly you to Fresno." We went, "Okay." And we all got into this guy. And he's got the champagne and the booze and hors d'oeuvres and all that.
No
And his
way.
plan was he was just trailing us all over the state. His plan was to land in Fresno and party with us.
Oh,
He was a guy
wow.
from Sacramento.
Okay.
But he wound up taking us there. Well, we got out so fast after we got in, Channel 24 locally is reporting us missing in action.
Oh, no.
And my mother's just dying. She, "Oh, my God, my son went down in the ocean." And then we show up in the back of this Learjet, and everybody's like, "You're alive." There's about 10,000 people at the airport. All the other bombers came in.
Grand entrance, right?
That was one of the other experiences,
Oh my gosh, that reminds me of a story. We have the same parents, so my mom and dad one time got invited by a friend. This is back in the 70s, right when they moved to Fresno. He said, "I just got my license. I got a plane. Come fly with me." And I'm like, "You're a little nervous."
Fly with me.
Yeah. So like, "Are you sure?" Yeah. We'll go. I don't remember where he's gonna fly him, and we'll come back. So he takes off. They're flying. No problem. They come back to Fresno, and he just starts circling the airport. And they're like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "Oh, I could fly. I'm just not very good at landing."
Oh, no. Yeah. Thanks for telling us.
So he keeps trying to. He's making these like attempts to land, and then he'll chicken out and like zoom back up in the sky. And the Fresno Tower's like, "Land your plane." He's like, "I don't have enough room. The runway's not big." And they're like, "We land 747s here. Like, you have enough room. Just land."
You're starting to freak out. Oh, no.
Yeah.
I take it he got down all right.
Eventually, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, you're coming down one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
You're either going to land it or run out of fuel. So
So you're a big fan of music. You're in a band. You play music. I want to know. We all love music here. I've been in a band. Max is a musician. All of us, except for Marty, maybe.
I play the didgeridoo.
Oh, he does. He does. He
And
can circle breathe.
he does backup vocals
Yeah,
for our
I played
podcast.
poorly. I played bass very poorly in high school.
Very cool. So I want to know, growing up, what were your musical influences? Listening to?
Oh my God, there were so many back then.
Yeah.
I'm like a child of the 60s.
You grew up in
Yeah,
the
you
best
grew up in an amazing time with
era.
fantastic
Born in
musicians.
1950, so I hit it all. Elvis, the Beatles, and I mean, that was my influences. How about everybody?
You had all the
Yeah.
greats.
the Beatles, the Stones, Led Zeppelin. I mean, let's just go forever. you
Yeah.
know?
What about today? Is there any? What kind of music do you like to listen to today? Anybody particular?
In the way of new stuff?
Yeah. Or more recent.
Well, yeah, I don't want to be an old fuddy-duddy and say, no, I only listen to my crap.
Well, I like that.
I'm like
there
that too.
there are tunes that I like, but the problem is I can't tell you who it is.
Yeah. No, I get that.
I can't even remember his name. Oh, how embarrassing. He's Prince Light.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Bruno Mars.
Bruno
Yeah, Bruno
Mars.
Mars. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah, Bruno
Yeah.
Mars is good.
I've
Yeah,
seen
he's
him
good.
3 times, and it's just like a hell of a show.
Yeah,
you
he's a
know.
great entertainer.
Best concert I ever. Ask me what's the best concert I ever saw.
Best
Hey,
concert.
Ray, what's the best concert you ever saw?
I said his name, Prince.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
I
my
can
God.
imagine.
Oh, I was not a believer. I didn't like his records or any of that. Of course, this is early on. And a friend of mine that I was in the record business with at A&M Records when I worked there, Peter Stupar, is a big Prince fan. And he says, "No, we're going to a private show at the Warfield. You're going to dig it. You don't have to stay, but you know, just go." And Prince was introducing his new band that night called The Revolution, and you know, we had front row seats up in the balcony, and it was like a Jesus experience, man. I mean, oh dear, this guy's good. Was I ever wrong? So anytime I had a chance to see him,
Did you see him when he came to Fresno?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I was there too. Yeah, that was a great concert. Yeah,
I mean, he's just
it was amazing.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things I love to watch. It's a YouTube clip, but it's been played around a lot. It was when George Harrison passed away.
My guitar gently
Yeah.
weeps.
Oh, yeah.
He
Seen that?
came out and put
And
everybody
just
to
shredded.
shame.
Just the
It's
look
incredible.
on Tom Petty's
Yeah.
face is like, what is happening
You know
right
that
now?
was a walk-on. don't you?
Yeah, nobody knew it was going to happen.
No, I
yeah.
mean, he was on the bill, but he did not rehearse the song, and he finally said, "Fuck it."
Uh-huh.
And he came out with his axe and just burned.
Just
My
burned
favorite
it,
part
and he
about
just
that
throws it and it disappears.
is
somehow,
that for
yeah.
like a couple of things. He's just wailing. Everybody's looking at him like he's just like God walking on the stage. And then he does the thing where he just leans into the audience and they lift him back up. And then at the end, he just takes his guitar off and tosses it in the sky, and it never comes down. Like I still don't understand what happened.
I got to tell you, I mean, this will sound stupid, but I just he to me was the epitome of cool. You know, I want to be that guy when I grow up. You know, although I was 30 years older than him, but I thought he was just amazing.
Yeah, he is
you
cool.
know?
So you said now, did you want to originally be a musician and then you kind of just got on the radio? How did that all happen?
Radio was a complete accident. I was a zoology major at school. Go figure. Because I like animals, you know, still do. And I was living over in Santa Cruz, you know, back in the 60s. Great place to live. I'm telling you. We won't go into it. Why?
Especially in the 60s, right?
Oh, yeah.
60s,
Yeah, it was like free everything. And I mean everything. And I, you know, gigging around there a little bit. I'd been playing bass since 64, and this was 68, 69. And I was hanging out with a cat who was a disc jockey at a station in Salinas, and he got sick, real sick. I think he had hepatitis or something. And his boss calls me. And I used to go hang out with him in the station, just watch. His boss calls me, and he says, "You come and do it." I go, "Get out of here, because you've been here a number of times. I mean, you just go do it." I went, "Okay, well, how much are you going to pay me?" And we pay minimum wage, it's $1.27 an hour. And I said, "Oh, cool, big money. All right, I'm there." And swear to God, I've been doing it ever since.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I haven't stopped. I mean, it began with that little experience back then, and you know.
And how did you wind up in Fresno?
Well, I was born here, so
Okay,
I
you just
came
came back.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, I even took off in 85, 86, I guess it was, and I moved to England. I've been over there a lot, and I had every reason to stay there. I was doing music radio, I was doing talk radio, and I had a television program. And then my mother got sick, only child, so I came back, and I just figured she would pass, but she didn't. She faked me out and lived another 26 years, you know. So the part-time 6-month gig at KMJ is still going on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've been around. So I know you're not going to remember this. My first job when I got out of college, I studied radio, TV, and film. I got a job at Kiss Country, and I was on the morning show with Jody Joe, and it was a lot of fun. And then they would have me do stuff with you from time to time.
Really?
Yeah, I drove the KMJ RV. That was like the mobile.
Oh, yeah. Boy, have things changed since those days.
It was 04. Yeah. And so I think I did something in Mariposa with you and a couple things around town.
We did Mariposa.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
So the funny thing to me was just because you're a local celebrity and people listen to you, and I think just like with celebrities, we get to feel like we know you, right? Even though we've never met you in person.
Yeah. I get that all the time.
Yeah. And so that's what I was gonna say is I saw so many people come up to you and talk to you as if like, Ray, remember when we did that thing with the cool cars at and you were so gracious to everyone. Oh yeah, man, like how are you? You know, so how did you learn to do that with people? Is that something you enjoy, just meeting random people who feel like they know you?
I enjoy
awkward?
people a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes when they come up to you and you go, you remember when, you got to fake it because you don't remember, but,
Mhm.
and I don't want to piss them off. So, I mean, I talk for a living, so it's easy. you know?
Yeah.
Well, for those people too, it's a special memory, right?
Yeah.
Because
No,
they're like,
I
I got to do that with Ray, or
I
you know,
guess, yeah, you know,
so
Yeah,
of course.
I keep, tell people that are a little too starstruck. I mean, I cut, I bleed, I fart. I mean, I'm like anybody else, and that's, of all the celebrities that I've met, it's the same way. They're just people doing their job, and if you treat them like that, it'll go real far for you, rather than go, oh man, I got all your albums and I had your poster when I was 9 and,
Right.
they hate that
Yeah.
shit. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, or like my buddy Johnny, him and I, of course, big Beatles fans, and my friend Johnny was at Amoeba Records, and I think I told this on air before, Amoeba Records in San Francisco, and Paul McCartney walked in. Johnny didn't know what to do, and he sends me a message with a picture of him, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, Paul McCartney's here! I'm gonna go talk to him. 10 minutes later, he calls me up, and he's just like, "I can't believe I did that." I said, "What'd you do?" He says, I walked up to him, and I just said, I showed him this album that I found, and I said, "Hi, I found your album in the bargain bin."
oh God. Really?
And he just walked away like he did. It's just the worst thing to say to somebody.
You bring up Amoeba Records. I must have sold 3,000 or 4,000 albums to them, old DJ copies.
Yeah. That's
I knew
awesome.
that place well. You want a George Harrison story?
Yeah,
I was in New York with A&M Records when he signed Dark Horse to A&M, and that's where he met his current wife, Olivia Arias. She was my friend Richie's secretary, and so I'm staying at Richie's house, Rich Tatoyan, who's from Fresno, but he was a bigwig back with A&M Records in New York, and he calls me because we didn't have texting or any of that then, and he goes, "Get your ass into the East Village. Meet me at such and such." And I go, "I'm tired. What are we going to do?" He goes, "We're going to have lunch with Dave Herman from WNEW, big disc jockey, and somebody named George." And I'm going, "George who? Don't worry about it. Get on it." All right, so I go flying down there, and I'm like, "Hey, Rich. Hi, Dave. Good to see you." Hey, oh, shit. Ray's just smiling away. "Ray, how are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, God," and so. But anyway, talking about them just being normal people.
Right.
Yeah.
And he had been with Olivia for about 4 or 5 months. American girl, obviously, the little Mexican-American girl, delightful lady. And she had, he finally moved her over to his home in Kent in England. And she had 4 dachshunds, weenie dogs. He just loved them. And he wasn't too fond of them. He liked big dogs. So anyway, he went through this whole story about going back to India to do the thing with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi with the band and their whole transcendental stage. And of course, he went hog wild into it. And he had all of these kaftans that the Maharishi had given him. And so he says, I come home one day after in the studio with Jeff Lynne, and he says, "The fucking dog had puppies on my kaftan." He says, "I almost threw them all in the pool, but Olivia wouldn't let me." Just normal, everyday stuff with the Beatles.
That's
It was pretty funny.
That is cool.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you too. Going back, you said you kind of fell into the radio gig, but I mean, did you ever kind of get nervous? Do you ever get nervous doing interviews, going on the air? Or
Never.
What about in your band? Never. When you go, never. Wow.
I think that's from years of doing radio because you just
go
do it. I mean, you guys know that you're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we
I
always
like
get scared though. We're scared right now.
Yeah.
like my show.
Bundle of nerves.
My show is probably the least prepared show in radio. I got a rule. We call it radio without a safety net. And I never pre-book guests unless it's somebody big,
Sure.
president, governor, or somebody who is an expert at the moment when there's a crisis like now with Ukraine and
right.
Russia. It's just me and whatever's happening today.
Yeah.
And, people are telling, it's not going to work. You got to have a guest every day. No, they don't want to listen to you. They want to, well, no, guess what? They did want to listen to me because, the ratings are huge. I keep waiting for them to get sick of me, and we get our, we call it the book. And I'll go into Blake's office, the program director. "Oh, what's going on in the book?" And he goes, "Shut up, you're number 1 again." He goes, like for the 31st time,
Right.
And I'm so thankful, and you keep thinking, literally, when are they going to get sick of me? And what you're cycling the audience. They grow up, they die. There's more behind them, and current events are current events.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about this format. When I got into radio, it was like you could play whatever you wanted to.
Sure.
It was the old underground FM days where we all talk like that. You got real close to the microphone. Here's a whole side of Black Sabbath because I'm going to get a up, so, and you'd play it, regardless of what was really happening. And that was a ball, but then it became very formatted with, consultants and card files and rotation. And I just, in England, it was still pretty much the last frontier where you could do a show and you were the star of the music show, and you did your music, and you presented it your way.
Yeah, you were an actual DJ, right?
Yeah. And I dug that over there at the Capital Radio, and then I worked at a rock station in a station that was called UK Talk Radio Live on Oxford Street, and then that's how that whole thing evolved. They're going, you're really up on politics and stuff. You keep talking about it. Come over to this side and do it. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm afraid. And I did it, and I'm like, oh, my God. This is like different every day. It's just like the days of early progressive rock when you could play whatever you want. I can talk about whatever I want. Yeah. And so I still do my show that way to this day.
Right.
And that's why I love it. And I won't retire.
Yeah.
People get, when are you going to retire? And die? Everybody I know that retires dies.
Exactly.
And I mean, why would I retire? First off, I'm going to just say this. I make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I am blessed. They pay me a lot of money. Took a while to get there. But I make a very decent wage. And why would I quit, sitting on my butt 3 hours a day talking about what I want to talk about?
It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to love retirement. No, I'm not. I like my job.
Yeah.
And the station is like, please don't retire. Please don't go away. So it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and KMJ's been good to you. I mean, you've been there for
Well, I've been good
years.
to them. I mean, we have a thing called non-traditional revenue, basically. It's money that's made above and beyond the commercials.
Sure.
Through promotions, through endorsements, and I do a lot of those. Mm-hmm. And they get to keep all that just simply because I make so much in their mind. So every year, aside from, what my ratings bring in terms of revenue, there's another $700,000 or $800,000 on top of that I've done on the side that goes on the books as non-traditional revenue. And the corporate back in Atlanta is like, oh, we love this guy.
Right.
Even though they threw me off the air last year for 2 weeks for telling a fictitious story that, oh, my God. Yeah.
So okay, I was going to, we talk a lot on this show about free speech. And if there's one thing that I'm seeing that scares me more than anything in the world is I feel like our liberties are just being stripped away. You look at Canada. I've got a pastor friend in Canada. He knows pastors who are in solitary confinement, because they refuse to say whatever the government wanted them to say.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing that all over. So I know you talked about you have a friend in the Ukraine, and if you want to tell us a little bit about that, you've traveled.
I have
the
many
world.
friends there.
Yeah. What do you think going on? I mean, it's been a scary time politically. Concerns me for my future, my kids here. What do you think how is this going to play out with Russia? What are you seeing playing out? And speak to the fact of what your friends have been experiencing, back there.
Well, man, I told you about one friend that I had who started off in something they called the Free Ukrainian Militia or something like that. I can't remember exactly what they called it. And they started off with 212 men right at the beginning of this thing. Right when they started, invading, and that's just days ago.
Yeah,
212. They're now 63 of them. Wow. So that tell you, what's going on. I'm still of the impression that this is going to backfire wildly on Putin. It's going to go right to the edge of nuclear, right so close. It's just like, and then his military is going to take him out. And why do I think that? Well, first off, one of my closest friends used to be, in charge of, he was the chairman of the Intel Committee in the House, and that's Devin Nunes. And he happens to work for a president now named Donald Trump. And he still is privy to a lot of things without compromising any of his information and all that. But what we're not hearing, but I think we're going to begin to hear, is that there are many Russian soldiers going into Ukraine who felt like they've been ripped off. They weren't told where they were going. They've got lousy food. They have no medicines or anything for themselves. And many of them are dumping their uniforms as soon as they get in.
Right.
What Putin didn't count on is, first off, 86% of the Russian military's conscriptions, they're drafted. They're against their will.
Right.
And let's say probably half of them have relatives and close friends in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And they're peeling off their uniforms, finding their pals with their cell phones, going with them and fighting for the other side. Finally, tonight on Fox, there were 2 Russians that were interviewed. Yeah, we were, and we're not anymore. We're here, and we're fighting the very battalion that brought us here.
Yeah.
And Putin gave the order for this country to be taken in 9 hours. And you can see it's been 6-7 days now.
Yeah.
He's losing.
Yeah.
They're fighting
Even
back,
though they've taken Kherson and they've taken Kharkov, and I know both of those areas very well and have friends there, the Russian military is there, but what I'm hearing from them is they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
You know, they're raiding stores to get food because they don't have any.
Right.
And they're asking Ukrainians, can you help us out? You know, there's a very
Wow.
poignant video that I have of a Ukrainian soldier who was captured by Ukrainians, you know, the people, you know, just last week on Thursday, the Ukrainian military gave away 18,000 weapons in one day, AKs and handguns and all that.
Just to
And this was
civilians,
a family of 4 women and a husband, and they captured a couple of guys. One of them escaped, but one of them they still have. And I got this video of him. They're feeding him. He's drinking tea. He's crying while the matriarch of the family is calling his mother in Russia,
Wow.
letting her know that her soldier son is in good hands. He's going to be taken care of. We got him. Don't worry about it. We'll get him back to you, Mama. No problem.
Right.
And then I come to find out it's going on all over the country. That a lot of these Ukrainian families are capturing Russian soldiers, and they're just like, oh, we give up, man.
Yeah.
You know, and my grandmother was Ukrainian. Here's my picture. I've been here 1,000,000 times. And they're like kind of welcoming them into their family and calling their parents back in Russia. And that's going to backfire. Once that gets out in Russia,
Yeah.
with all the protestation that's going on, protesting that's going on in Moscow now, tens of thousands of people every day are protesting in Moscow. Putin has already arrested 7,000 Muscovites, you know.
Really, that many?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it's a mess. And just tonight I heard that the Special Forces general of their Air Corps was assassinated by a Ukrainian sniper.
Oh, wow.
A civilian.
Wow.
Took, you know, Putin's number 2 guy out. Number 2 guy out. And that shit's going to be going on the whole time until, you know, Putin takes a bullet.
Right.
And it'll be from his military. There's a Russian oligarch in this country who says, I'm a native Russian, I'm a passionate Russian, and I am all for the denazification of my country. And I'm going to offer $1 million, $2 million, $5 million to any officer in his military that takes him out. Then he amended that a little bit. Don't kill him, but he's got to be tried.
Yeah.
He's got to serve his just desert. But here's the check, you know, and he's holding it up in the media. There it is. I mean, you put the number on it. Just get rid of him. So
Yeah, that's a really interesting view, I guess, too, or just idea to think through, is that since everybody in the army has kind of been forced to be there, and a lot of them, you know, Russians are, you know, the average citizen isn't a bad guy, right? And they're going into
the Russians are great. I've been there a
Yeah,
number of times
yeah,
too,
and
just
they-
like Ukraine, you know.
and they're getting sent into a place. It's really just
He's sending
opening
young soldiers too.
And
young Russian
you got it.
soldiers.
These cats are 17, 18 years old.
Yeah, it's opening.
You know,
Putin
and they
up for
don't
them
know.
just
They
to-
did not know where they were going.
No.
Nobody was told.
Yeah, speaking of that, I mean, obviously Russia controls the media.
Oh, yeah.
just like Canada now and China. But I remember when in 2014, when they took
I was
over
there.
Crimea. Were you?
I was there.
Oh wow!
Devin Nunes got my ass out.
You know what? He rescued my uncle when Lebanon went to war in 2006. The Civil War broke out again. My dad called Devin Nunes, and he helped rescue my uncle.
Devin texts me. He goes, "You still there chasing women?" I go, "Oh yeah." He goes, "You got to get yourself to Kyiv, and I'm getting you out of there."
That's awesome.
He says it's going to get ugly, and it did.
No, but I remember reading that most of the Russians, because they only read what their government tells them, they didn't even know that was happening in 2014.
Yeah,
Whatever
yeah.
the newspaper
Oh my
was
gosh.
telling them, you know, they were just, it's not happening. So
Just another day.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here. Yeah.
Crazy.
I think it's awful. I mean, I'm just literally sick over it. But I think it'll get right to that edge, and then it'll end. And but I mean, the damage that's been caused so far, and I did a lot of hanging out in Odessa, and the Russian naval flotilla is off the coast right now. My friends can see them because they're here. They're here. They're going to take us. We're next. And beautiful city, very Western, so pro-American in Odessa. It's just I would go there and do a little work for ITV in England, or I would just go there to see friends, and I was treated like a god. You're from not only in America, but you're from California, for crying out loud. And it sickens me. But aside from the missiles and all the terrible things that are happening, the average Russian foot soldier, I don't think they're going to be that big of a player in this mess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing about social media is a lot of the things you mentioned are coming out in social media.
Yeah.
If you follow like Ukrainians on TikTok or Instagram,
Yeah.
they're posting a lot of the stuff.
Well, a lot of those videos of these soldiers are on TikTok, where they're calling their mom and all that. And the thing that troubles me the most is they've moved in the pressure bombs, they've moved in the cluster bombs, they're moving in all of this illegal against the Geneva Convention. The pressure bombs, if you know about them, it's horrible. It's a bomb that goes off in a straight line, and as it goes off, it's spreading a liquid, and then that liquid ignites about 5 or 10 minutes later, just taking everything out. It's worse than napalm in Vietnam.
Yeah, it's kind of like napalm.
And they know that they are there. They've seen them in the back of trucks. They know they've hauled them into Kyiv, but none have been used yet. But when they do, and I think if he uses those, his own military will be so repulsed. The generals will say, "Okay, we're done. You got to go." So, but it will be a horrific mess if they use just one of those. I mean,
do you think this could cause a civil war in Russia? I mean,
no.
No.
They're horribly peaceful people. They've been through so much. They know their history. They know that Stalin killed 23 million of them. They know what they went through in World War II. They don't want nothing but to sit back on their butts and drink vodka. And I say that very affectionately. And again, every time that I would go somewhere in Russia and they would find out I was American, I was like everybody's best friend. They're a little bit more robust than Ukrainians. They're a little tougher. They like to fight, but it's friendly fighting. It's not like war fighting or any of that. Whereas the Ukrainians are they're just delightful, peaceful people. They're just wonderful. But that one little factoid that all of these guys are conscripted 86 of them, and so many of them have relatives and buddies there. And now they're there. Oh, we're in Ukraine. Oh, wait, we got to kill these people. I grew up here. What are you talking about? So it's going to blow up in his face.
I have a question from your perspective. Switching back to California, growing up, it wasn't that long ago we had a Republican governor, but now it's a one-party state, and all this progressive stuff is coming. And do you see it all in the next 10 years getting so far to one side that we start to swing back a little bit to the moderate?
I think it will. The founding fathers, if they were still alive, they would be going, "See, we told you." They preached against something called the tyranny of the majority. And this is why they did not want a true democracy. I say this on my program all the time. In a real democracy, it's like France. If the majority says we're going to cut off the king's head, it's law and it's legal. We're the majority. We win. We're going to kill all you guys. And in a constitutional republic, we're governed by a document. And it's a document that the Founding Fathers said is not a thinking document. It's not a malleable document. It's not a living document. It is what it is. And otherwise, you're going to have this thing called the tyranny of the majority. Well, we gave up on the California Constitution in Sacramento, obviously, and that's what the voters wanted. So now we have what's called the tyranny of the majority. And the Founding Fathers would go, okay, there's the example. There's the example right there. And I think ultimately, and it may take about 10 years, people are going to figure that out. And they go, this is not the way to fly. It's costing too much money.
I'm not sure how they're not figuring it out now, especially in like the most liberal areas of California, which are just complete
literally covered in human.
Literally covered in.
Well,
shit.
there's that, and there's the problem they don't have any water.
Right.
All of a sudden, their taxes are sky high. Everybody's getting it,
People can't afford it.
And this is what changes statistically liberals into conservatives. It's their wallet.
It's always
the taxes in the economy. That's
the money.
100% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they'll figure it out.
Yeah. I was driving by a gas station off of Clovis Avenue on the way here. It was $5.69.
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, I was in Cayucas this weekend, $6.08.
Golly.
Jeez.
And I needed gas too, and I'm going, nope, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And the friend I'm with, she's going, You're on fumes, dude. I go, I don't care. I'm not paying
We're
$6.
pushing.
If we have to walk through Pacheco Pass, I'm going to get some cheap gas.
Push it to the top of the hill, and we'll coast down.
I couldn't
down,
believe
yeah.
it. It blew my mind. I was
not going to pay $6 for gas.
no way.
Yeah.
But with the price of oil, a barrel of oil, $7 gas is going to be right around the corner.
Oh, right around the corner.
You know, and where are we getting our oil from? Who are we getting it
Russia.
from?
So Russia.
You better believe it.
Wasn't it just a few years ago we were energy?
We were a net
Independent, yeah.
exporter
We
of
were
oil.
selling it.
We were selling it. Thank you,
it
Donald
happened
Trump.
quick. Yeah.
Oh, wait a second. 2 days ago, I heard our president say that our sanctions are stopping Russia from getting all of
Yeah,
our
the
stuff.
sanctions that don't hit for 30 days.
Yeah,
Those sanctions. Oh,
He's
that's
like,
right. Yeah.
our sanctions are damaging Russia. I'm like, we just sent him billions of dollars for oil. Let me.
And it's
Yeah.
been figured out by the economists in this country, once the sanctions do hit, if we keep buying the oil, as we are, 24% more this year
Right.
than last year because people want to drive, the pandemic's over, it's not going to backfill what Putin loses personally.
No.
Right.
He's going to remain the rich kid on the block.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Biden, don't even want to, don't get me started.
Yeah, no.
This will be a 4-hour show.
Yeah.
I've been talking. It's interesting because I've had liberal friends who have been like, "What happened?" And I try to tell them like, foreign policy matters. They think that if the United States plays nice with people, that they're going to get results. And you look back to 2014 when Obama was running, ISIS all of a sudden was chopping people's heads off.
Right.
You look, 4 years of Trump, it was the most peaceful years we've had. No new wars, nothing. Middle East was having peace agreements.
Peace accords.
Yeah, peace accords
In the Middle East.
And then you get this like weak foreign policy, and you see what happens immediately.
It was very obvious to Putin. He got the green light.
Yeah.
With the way that Biden butchered Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah.
That was a go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we got it.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. They're not going to do anything, that old fart,
Right.
and off we go.
Yeah.
If I hate to say this, but it's fact now. You can see it. If Trump were still there in the White House, none of this would have happened.
Yeah.
And if we were even if we were still energy independent, had Biden not done everything he did,
Right.
none of this still would have happened. He wouldn't have the money to do what he's
You
doing.
wouldn't have the cards to
Right.
do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of this can be blamed on the current administration.
Yeah. Marty, you were going to say something. I could see you were talking.
No. I was thinking.
You were
You read that
thinking.
wrong.
It's
still thinking about-
fascinating. I used to listen to you when I was used to be an undertaker, and I would have bomb bodies. I would listen to your radio show all the time, and it's always magical to hear you talk because you come with such a great wealth of information, such life experience. Have you ever thought of writing a memoir?
I'm working on one.
That would be perfect.
Somebody finally talked me into it.
Because you have a lot of intelligent things to say. We need to listen to more intelligent people.
Who were you going to hire to read the audiobook? I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Maybe my son.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a journalist. But
Yeah, actually, how is he? Was one of my students at Fresno State.
He's kicking ass, man.
That's what I heard. He's like writing for.
He's at the Indianapolis Star now,
awesome.
where he's the sports and entertainment columnist, and that's all he wanted.
That is
I mean,
so
he was
cool.
a political writer up until then, and I'm like, Rory, you're so good, you're so fair. Don't stop. I got it. Was driving me nuts. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and he's always been a sports guy and a music freak. So
Writing about the Colts
he got his
and-
wish. I mean, his first day on the gig, it's like, okay, and I interview John Mellencamp, and he's like, oh, okay,
That
because
is so
Indianapolis,
cool.
that's
Yeah.
where Mellencamp is. That's his
That's
home,
awesome.
Wow.
So
Yeah, it was
Rory's
cool.
loving life.
That's
He's having
good.
a ball.
I mean, even when he was a number of years ago now, he was a student of mine at Fresno State, and he started writing for. I think he was writing for the Collegian, and then doing some stuff for Fresno B. Doing, and then during that class, he started writing stuff for like. I want to say like GameStop or what.
Oh yeah, right. He had all that game things. that he
Game
was
things,
doing, yeah.
and I was like reading through them because he's like, "Hey, check this out." I'm like, "You're really good."
He is good.
He's
Yeah.
really good. And then not that long after, I saw he's like a legit journalist working for like
I
a big
use my
city.
mouth. He uses a pen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
There's one story real quick at the. He called me one day at the Fresno Bee. He was so mad, and his editor told him to go out and find a story about Devin Nunes. And Rory's like, "Oh, okay. What's the lead? What do you want me to do?" Well, just go find something.
Oh, yeah, of
Your
course.
father knows him. Go find something. You mean like make it up? Well, I'm not saying that. And he called me, and I've never heard Rory lose his temper. He was on fire. He wanted to kill this guy. And it was shortly after that they were out of there. Off to Las Vegas. Boom. See ya.
Right.
Wow.
That's how it is. All right, I'm going to switch things up a little bit. I want to hear, you've been in Fresno for a long time. We talk about food on this show a lot because I like food. I used to be a big fat guy, and I'm always still a big fat guy on the inside. So I want to know, where do you like to eat in town? Because I'm sure you've eaten at a lot of places.
Well, I'm a creature of habit. I go to the Elbow Room a lot.
Elbow Room,
It's close to the house.
Limelight. How about?
Yeah,
Limelight's good.
Yeah,
But
Limelight.
Sheranian's I'm more into the restaurateur than I am the restaurant. Mike Sheranian knows the Elbow Room's a good friend. Fansler, who owns 30 restaurants, good friend. Go to all his restaurants. The Pismo's, Dave's barbecue place. I'm at a brain fart. I don't remember the name of it. I eat there once a week.
Oh, Westwoods?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Westwoods,
and just that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
the thing that I like here is we got a lot of good ethnic food.
Yes.
There's great Japanese food, Indian food,
Thai
food.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
anywhere it's like good,
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah, Fresno is like this weird little hidden food capital, right?
Yeah.
We'll bring, we have a lot of, at our business, we have a lot of guests come in. We do chocolate for some famous chefs and things like
Cabernet filled
that.
chocolates. Oh my god!
And we'll, some
I haven't had those for years.
Oh, I brought you some caramels, not as nice as Cabernet chocolates. We'll have some pretty big, chefs you would know from Food Network, these big chefs, and they'll come to town, and we like taking them to like this little hole in the walls, like Mama's Asian Noodle House, which is just like this.
That's cool. That's
and
really cool.
they'll lose their mind. Like, this is the best Thai food or Laotian food I've ever had, and I'm going, that's right.
I'll give you one in Carmel that I just discovered the other day with my daughter, and it's a literal hole in the wall.
Okay.
But I mean, it's right in Carmel proper. It's called Tommy's Walk.
Tommy's Walk.
Oh
okay.
my! It's Chinese food, but oh my god! I had maybe one of the top 3 meals in my life at this place
Really?
2
Wow.
Saturdays ago. I'm just standing up in the middle of the meal, and I walked right into the kitchen. And everybody's looking at me, who's the big white guy? I'm going, where's the chef? I want to shake this man's hand. I mean, I was. And I met Tommy himself. And it was unbelievable.
Yeah, Carmel. I've had some good food in Carmel. I've also had one of the most disappointing omelets of my life. It was my fault. I went to this breakfast place that everybody told me to go to, and I forget the name of it. And they told me to get the lobster omelet. And I was like, oh, lobster omelet. Turns out I don't think I like lobster in my omelet. It was pretty funky, actually.
Wow.
I had an oyster omelet at Dorn's in Morro Bay. Don't ever get the oyster
Yeah, that
omelet.
doesn't
It's
sound
like someone
good. Yeah,
sneezed in your omelet. It's gross.
Oh, dear.
I ate it, but because my wife was laughing at me, so I had to do it. But it was just nasty.
Oh, dear. Don't remind me
great.
about how early I got to get up tomorrow. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that is, speaking of which, our show, we've hit the time limit. I do want
Well,
to...
I wasn't hinting, by the way. I just was reminded of this
Gotcha.
conference call I have to take at 6:30.
But it is. Our time is up, everybody. We could go a little bit longer. You guys have some more questions here? This is what we'll do. All right, this is what we're going to do. It is time because I can hear the music rising. So
There it is.
There it is. Everybody,
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah,
Oh, please.
whatever you
This
need.
was a gas. I'll come back sometime if you want.
Oh, we
you
would
know.
love to have
I
you
mean,
on.
this is fun. It's quite different from what I do. So.
Yeah, and we like to
Yeah.
have some fun on here.
Yeah, because I want to ask you about screw bowls. Are you bringing that back, or are we doing?
I wish I could.
Yeah, I love that place. I
that
went
was-
there quite a few
I
times.
had so much fun.
Yeah.
Couple shows ago, we talked about Marty talked about how he pooped his pants trying to get into his house one time. So
Thanks for bringing that up.
yeah, just the kind of stuff we throw around.
Is that my honor or what? Yeah.
Ray, thank you again for joining us.
I'm glad I finally made it.
Oh my gosh, we are
So
too.
are we. This was
It
awesome.
was
Yeah,
a pleasure.
thank you for coming in.
We're thrilled to have you. Thank you.
great.
Ray, let's pitch some things. Make sure the audience knows where they can find you. KMJ,
Yeah, that's usually
that's the one.
11 to 2 every day, AM, FM.
Perfect.
100,000 watts. I'm there, baby.
That's right. He's across pretty much all California for the most
If you
part.
can't make that time, they got the podcast. I mean, they got the they do the podcast or streaming.
AMJnow.com. Just find my name and hit the podcast, and you can hear it all.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually the most listened to podcast in the Central Valley.
Like this killer interview I did today with this musician in Kyiv, Ukraine.
Oh, really?
Oh, God.
Oh,
it
we'll
was
check
great.
that one out.
It was just great. Yeah.
Awesome.
Poor guy.
Check it out, everybody. Listen to it. Remember, share, subscribe, and remember 5 stars is the correct number of stars.
people.
Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Have a good one.
Bye.